Welcome, everybody. This is really strange. Strange times, strange remedies. I hope you can all see me. I was thinking of a crown or maybe a tiara for next week, and maybe a different backdrop. But today we're just seeing how it goes, so it's lovely to have you all here. Hopefully, we're going to do these weekly, every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. So, really, this is our opportunity today to tell you what it is we can help you with. I've got a few ideas, a few resources to share with you. We're going to give you an opportunity to chat in breakout rooms, which sounds terribly cool and trendy. I'm not sure whether it is. I hope it works. And we're going to ask you to tell us what you want next week. So if we go on to the agenda, which should be slide 2, obviously check in. We're going to first check in a little minute, and we're going to see how we're all coping. We're going to ask you a few questions. Then I'm going to talk to you about English online resources. I've kind of done a little check on Twitter and other places, and I've come up with what I think are the best of the week. So I'll share those with you. Then I'm going to give you some language ideas and resources. So the idea was to give you a few each week to come up with some new ideas and to share yours, hopefully, going forward. Then obviously we'll follow with literature ideas and resources. And then after that, we're going to go into these breakout rooms and give you a chance to network and chat and really come up with some ideas, tell us what you want going forward. Now, throughout, we're here for questions and answers. So if I tell you how that works, we've got open discussion, which everybody can see, and that's your opportunity to respond to me, really, or to share with everybody some comment on maybe a resource I'm sharing, or to tell me it's great. That would be fantastic. Or to tell us what it is you do that you think could amend maybe a resource or whatever. There is a question and answer box. Now that is kind of separate, and that will be answered by the Pearson team. So if you've got a question that is perhaps a little bit more specific to you than you would put in the open discussion, then feel free to put it in the question and answer. I'm going to end today with some new things that we've got going forward, so some breaking news. Before I do that, I just want to mention an Ofqual consultation that went live yesterday. If you go on the government website and follow the link for Ofqual, they have opened up a consultation paper based on the grading system for this year, for years 11 and 13. And they're asking for your views, and it closes on the 29th of April. Now, the three main areas they're covering there, though a lot of people have raised the question about should year 10 get a grade, or indeed other years get a grade, and they were first suggesting not, but now it seems that the overwhelming opinion was for yes. So they're asking for views on that. There's some information there about how they're standardizing and what the views are on that. And also there is a section on how, if necessary, people would appeal. And the suggestion being that the appeals would be just for data error for this year. Okay, so if you want to go on that separately. And I just want to say from the outset that whilst we'll do our best, obviously, to answer questions, despite anything you may have heard, the exam boards are in exactly the same situation as everybody else. So we're all in the same boat, really, here. And whilst I'm working for Pearson's today, I am a teacher. So I'm, really well aware of what it's like to sit at home and feel lonely and a bit lost and wondering. Actually, my main concern has been whether students will send me any work. So that we're all in exactly the same situation. So hopefully that's given you a starting point. We're going to ask you some questions now, and you're going to type them on the screen, and we're going to come back to you with the results. And the questions are going to be these. I'll just tell you them before we start. So just how are you doing is an opening one. What's been your biggest challenge? Mine is hairdressers, actually. That's just an aside, really. But what the heck we do when the hairdressers don't open. But so I want your view on that. What or who has been your saviour? Has it been your husband? Has it been your partner? Has it been your cat? Okay, has it been the TV? Has it been Rishi? Maybe. Have you got a little bit of a Rishi crush going on your 5 o'clock briefings? What's your greatest worry for the coming weeks? And the other one is the final one is what type of biscuit have you chosen for this meeting and why? Now, I like biscuit questions. I've chosen a digestive there for like my first biscuit. Sensible, solid, dunkable. If things get tough though, I've gone ginger nut for a bit later on. If things get a bit hairy going on. Okay, so somebody has said already, Laura has forgotten biscuits, and Fiona hasn't got any biscuits, so we need to remember biscuits are important for next time. Or maybe cakes. We could go cakes for another meeting. Okay, somebody's had a pink fondant fancy, which perhaps they should have kept to themselves. But anyway, I'm going to break out now and put the so John Paul, I think we need to go to the poll slides now if we could. There we go, and it's happened just like that. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to, can we come out of these, please? Thank you. Okay, thanks very much. Let's hope I can get back to my webcam there and you can all see me. That was absolutely fantastic and in some ways a little bit overwhelming. Obviously, there are a lot of worries out there, and I really hope that we can help allay those a little bit or help even just to brighten your week a little bit. The room I was in, um, mainly the main concerns obviously appeared to be how to keep up the challenge for some students, um, how to deal with remote learning, just the fear, I think. I mean, as you know, I hope I don't insult too many of you, but as an English teacher, I find technology has been one of the hardest parts of the job for me. That and carrying big bags of books around. Um, but that is my worry here today doing this. I have to say, you know, I've had a bit of a sleepless night worrying about whether this would chop off, whether you can hear me, whether indeed there's anybody out there. Um, and also other concerns were next year, and I think that is one of the biggest concerns now is we're all starting to think, I know I am, what I do with year 10 and what I do you know, to ensure year 10 are ready and indeed year 12 are ready for year 13. And I think that's been a big concern. How to make sure that those who don't have access, it's easy to sit in our nice bubbles with our laptops and our books and our nice dining table and think that everybody has that opportunity and they don't. And I think that's a big worry for all of us. One thing that I noticed, a few people said that, oh, somebody says they can't hear. Uh, and Jennifer says, should we have been able to see others' answers in the breakout rooms just then? Yes, I think you should. You should have been able to see what was happening. I'm not sure. I couldn't see anybody else's. Oh, and some. Okay, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe you just see your own. Maybe you just see your own. I'm not, and the answers to things you. I'd need to get somebody. Somebody is telling me now, so I'll come back on that. But just to go reiterate what I saw, as I say, I think the big concerns were next year how to deal with remote learning, and how to make sure the challenge, or for me, I've got a class of 30 year 10 students and only four sent me any work. They did access it on Show My Homework, but then to be honest, I'm not entirely sure I was clear that they had to send it in. But I have four students who haven't accessed it at all, and I have emailed them and I have phoned two of them, and they didn't seem very keen, so that was the difficult one. Um, apparently, I'm not sure whether I'm going to have to check on that question and answer on how we collect the polls there. So, okay, so that was great. Let's move on. Hopefully, I'll be able to help you out with some of those, and when you go into breakout rooms later on, you can let us know a little bit more information about what you want. So let's move on to the next slide then after that. And the biscuits, by the way, there seem to be a lot of bourbons in my room. I'm not partial to a bourbon myself, but I get the appeal. I was going to go chocolate digestive, but they can get a bit messy. Okay, so we've done those. Let's get on to online resources then. So some of you will already be total Twitter gods and goddesses. I'm not. I tend to lurk in the background, and I'm not very good at using it. But I have been monitoring it recently, and I have come up with a couple of top tips for you. The first one, obviously, our goddess is Claire Haberland, who is available on Twitter, on Facebook, and direct via Pearson's if you want to contact her. She's your first go-to place for information via Pearson's if you wanted to switch to us, if you wanted more information about us, or if you just have a query if you're with us. Okay. Now, these three people, I have asked them if they can be shared, and they are, to me, they've been my saviours actually over the last year. So Jennifer Webb, awesome lady, just had a baby actually, and is actually doing CPD, I think once or twice a week. She's done it for PGCE students, and she's got two fabulous books published. One is on English literature, how to bridge the cultural divide, and it's full of fantastic ideas on how to teach literature, and I've used loads of them and they work. And also she's got a new book out about writing, so she's well worth following. Another man called Douglas Wise, and I've given you there his website. He's literally, I've put a treasure trove of useful stuff. He's also amended quite a bit of his already for online learning, and he's got a list of YouTube videos there that are well worth watching. So he is definitely another one. Um, the great one that shares everything is the man called Stuart Pryke, who is just like a superstar in the Twitter sphere. He's got a Dropbox full of beautifully made goodies, and in fact, there's whole schemes in there. There's Inspector Calls, there's Macbeth, etc., and they're absolutely fantastic. Okay, so those I would definitely advise you to follow. Some people are telling me their screen is blank, and they can't see the slides anymore. I don't know why that is. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully, somebody will get up and some people can see everything. Sorry if you can't. Sorry. Um, so the best of the week, they were like my top ever ones. The best of the week, these are three people I found this week. Now, Elizabeth Bowling, I hope I've pronounced that right. She's got a lovely short story challenge, and you can see her Twitter handle there, and that's really great. I thought it was a really useful one, really usable. Um, a lady called Elena Russell or Eleanor Russell, I'm not sure which way it's pronounced, and there's her Twitter handle. She gives a really useful weekly what to watch, read, listen to resource, and it's a sort of PowerPoint slide. She does it for her department, I think, and there's some great things in there, if only just for your personal enjoyment. Um, and then there's another one, Mr. Alderson Teach, that was a link there. There's a list of all the freebies available during school closure. So there was a lot obviously going on. There's a lot of places, and I'm going to give you some more now of people who are giving you free stuff. So take advantage of it. I actually got 10% off at Oliver Bonas, that lovely online or shop that they have at stations, just as an aside there for being a teacher. Um, English and Media Centre, always a fabulous resource anyway, but they've opened up free and they've got a lovely close, I thought that was a really interesting one there, a close reading competition. Usually competitions are story writing, poetry writing, etc. But this is actually an analytical competition, which I thought was rather wonderful. So that's worth pursuing. They've also got acres and acres and acres of resources, and they're free. So that was for this week, and next week I've got a couple more already in mind that I'm going to post for you to follow or for you to share. But that was this week's. Okay, so I hope they were useful. So moving on to the next one. I'm going to give you some language ideas and resources of the week this week. Now, what I've gone for is a mixture really. I've gone for a couple of go-to kind of my regular resources and I use them in the classroom and for homework as well, and I've kind of tried to think about how they could be used online, and they're sort of like my go-to for language analysis to start with. So if we look at the first one, it's an adaptation of a really standard four-corner activity, this one, but it's got my favorite ever piece of writing that I use in, and I hope you can read it easily. This is Four Corners. So this is a review I found as a result of the exam paper 2019 that was about hotels. I did a lot of networks and a lot of stuff in the classroom around reviews, and I found the top 100 or top 20, I think it was actually, I narrowed it down to the TripAdvisor reviews. And this was my absolute favourite. It was about somebody who stayed in a hotel room and found, of all things, a cat's paw in their pillowcase. Now, what I tend to do as an intro, if I use it in the classroom, is I blank out the cat's paw bit, and I ask them to say what was in the cat's paw. What was in the what was in the cat's paw, what was in the pillowcase, and they always come up with mad ideas. But it's badly written. So the first thing I do is, okay, you think it's badly written, correct it. The next one is respond to it. Imagine you're the manager. How could you make the visitor want to come again? So managers do respond, don't they, on TripAdvisor, sometimes classically. Follow it. Imagine you went in next. Maybe don't do what I did. I did, what did you find in your pillowcase? And it didn't go well, but you know, it depends on your class. So imagine you visited. And then the final one is more classroomy, is more, this is the real work, is analyze it, perhaps. Select the most interesting language and explain what it suggests. Okay. Oh, somebody said this worksheet is amazing. It could work with Amazon reviews too. It could, yes, and I have used it with Amazon reviews. It's fabulous. You can find all sorts of bonkers reviews out there for all sorts of things. What also works as well is if you give it to them for 1 week and the next week they have to respond to you with their own text in it. Okay, sorry, that was a bit push it shouty, wasn't it there? So yeah, they take that one out and put another one in. All right, so that's brilliant. Oh, somebody's put, I just have the pencil picture. Should I have anything else? Um, if this is on Word, then the kids can write on it and they won't need to print anything. Absolutely, and I do have that on Word actually. I wasn't sure whether you get this as a PDF or a PowerPoint, but I think you're going to get the actual slides. Okay. So that's one, and I've had masses of fun with that. You can change what's in the boxes, and obviously you can put a more formal text in, but that was my kind of fun one. And then the cat's paw just goes down terrifically. The only thing I can think of about the cat's paw is that it's some kind of pagan ritual, was my thoughts. But, please respond to me with what you think it is. Right, next one then. That seemed to go down well. Next one. This again is kind of like a four corners one, but this is a little bit more formal, if you like. Okay, so what we've got here is four corners, and the top one you've got is, I could do with mine being a little bit bigger actually, it's a bit small, is summarize. Now I like to do things in threes, so I do things in multiples of threes. Summarize 3 things, summarize 6 things, summarize 9 things, that kind of thing. So my main objective is for reading tasks, because I'm a bit of a fanatic about students actually not reading. What they tend to do is just glance at it and wait for the task. So I try and do as much as I can to get them to actually read it first. So read it and summarize it in 3 sentences. Okay, so basically there I'm asking for the 3 main ideas. And then they have to narrow it down to 3 words in the triangle part. Okay. And then I've got some questions. Okay, so find down in the bottom left-hand corner, and then the crunch it. Now I think that's quite crucial, because what students tend to do when they're analysing is they go for obvious things like similes, metaphors, and they tend to ignore individual words. So I do a lot of this crunch activity. Now you can do it in the classroom going forward. It's quite easy if they reduce every single line to the most important word. And it's good that in a classroom setting, I know we haven't got that at the moment, but when we do, because you get arguments and discussions about which word you've chosen. So this is an article about how irritating it is when people have to eat on planes. And the first sentence is brace yourself for the next sentence. So, brace is the obvious word. But there are sentences here, for instance, yes, utterly horrifying. And it's interesting which word they choose, whether they choose utterly or horrifying. So that I say that's a good one to use. And I get them to write it in the teeth there, which is fun. Oh, somebody's put something interesting up there, so let's have a little look what they've put. Somebody's put, I do crunching a lot with the poems in the anthology. Yeah, good idea. They write the 10 crunched words in the back, or an anthology normally. I like it. Yeah, good. Yes, that's a good idea. Okay, so that's that one, and you can adapt that obviously and put whatever text you want in. I think you'll get that as a PowerPoint slide. I think I made that on a PowerPoint slide, so you can just drop your text in. If you want to know where that's from, it's from the Sunday Times. I can't remember the name of the journalist, but I can find it for you if you need to. Okay, moving on then. Let's see what we've got next. Oh yeah, one of my favorites. It's a tried and tested one. I used to do a lot of this when I was teaching media, and now I've kind of dragged it across into English. I don't think we do enough, kind of fun, silly stuff. I use this still with year 10. Make a storyboard and write the story. This was an English and Media Centre resource from a long time ago, and it's a whole very relatable story about a classic love triangle, actually. So I usually show them all the pictures, and I say to them, how would you make that into a 3-part story? But it works quite well as a remote learning task because if they can print it out, they can cut it up and make it into a storyboard and write it, or they can literally just write it. So it kind of works at every level really, without them having to print it out if they don't want to. And I give criteria about, make it a happy ending, make it a sad ending, make it an enigmatic ending. So that's really quite an easy one. And you can find pictures on the internet to make up a story. It can be quite interesting. Or get them to do it. Get them to send you the pictures, and the next week everybody has to make the story from it. I mean, I've been trying to think of things that to get what I miss is the classroom vibe. I miss being in the classroom and having the students respond and having some kind of community feeling going. So I was trying to think of ideas for that. So I've asked my students to make their own and send it in, and I'll choose the best to do for the next week. So that was that one. Um, Now, projects. This was what I was going to end on for the language for this week. Um, I just thought of 4 projects. Create a dream island or planet that would appeal to teenagers. Write the brochure for it, review it, write a travel article about it. My school's finding really a 50-50 split in terms of parent responses. 50% of parents are actually saying that there's too much stuff and the kids are getting overwhelmed. And another 50% are saying, obviously my Damien has raced through it in 20 minutes. Please send more. So I like a project idea where you can do as much or as little as possible. I recognise that some people might not do it, but so I have a couple of eager beavers who want to do more, and they want to do everything. But this they can keep to a manageable level themselves. There isn't a finite amount to do. There's design a new school, invent a new revision project, and I liked the launch and exercise regime for lazy teenagers. Create a persona to be the figurehead, write the text for the website, create a mock-up of the website. So I'm trying to keep it kind of quite, if you like, quite relevant. Okay, that was my language. If anybody has any comments there, I think a couple of those went down okay. Everybody all right with that? So I say the crunching seems to be going, quite well. Several people are typing, so I'll just wait until maybe they've got some ideas. And we're going to go on to literature next. And I've made these so they apply to any board really. So if you're not with us, it won't be a problem. Okay, let's move on then. If you've got ideas to share, here's a website, here the full English. And I think going forward, we're hoping to set up a podcast, a regular podcast under that handle. If you want to send us your ideas, it would be fantastic to include some of your ideas next week, because I know there are loads hanging about there. Even if you've got people that you think we should follow, that would be brilliant. Oh, Ruth Leonard says, in future weeks, could you give some suggestions for GCSE English language in adult education? We only have a night. Yes, definitely, Ruth. And also, Ruth, I think there are some specific FE networks coming up in early May. So if you kind of keep in touch, we'll let you know. When I've got the dates and definites for those, I'll let you know. Okay, but yes, I'll think about that. And maybe that's something we can think about, how we compress what we need to teach in a shorter space of time. And that's what I'm going to cover in the FE networks. Okay, so let's move on to literature then. Okay, now the first one is a very similar idea, and it's just an adaptation of the one you've seen for language. So here we've got a Lady Macbeth one. This works brilliantly for small extracts. You've probably got the idea. I'm not really finding I'm getting a great deal of response if I put, if you like, proper tasks on. So I'm trying to make them seem a little bit more fun, and a little bit less classroomy. And again, I've gone for the 3 things. So summarize the scene in 3 sentences. The reason I've done that is because I find that students at the weaker end are just going for the bit they can understand. They'll go for the dagger and write about the dagger. And any opportunity they'll get a scorpion in there if it's Macbeth. So I'm trying to get them to look at the whole of the extract. So then they've got describe Lady Macbeth in 6 adjectives or 3 adjectives, and there the idea being that I'm trying to expand what they actually have to say, because what they tend to do is to look at the extract and find one thing. I'm trying to expand their ideas about Lady Macbeth, really. And then the find down the bottom, none of which I never use subject terminology for that because I don't want them fixated on feature spotting. So I try and come from a different point of view. And then we've got the teeth again for the crunch the scene, find the 9 juiciest words. I think there's a lot of leaving out the actual words with Shakespeare. There's a lot of feature spotting, and there needs to be more easy emphasis on words, really, in the same way as there is in language. And you know, the words, rather than just trying to find a quote that they already know and explain it. So that's quite a good one. But this is my bestest. This is my favourite one. This has gone down very well at Networks, and I apologise if you've been at my Networks and already seen this. But this is my fill in the white space activity. Now I found, excuse me, when I was teaching year 11 this year, a classic CD borderline class, that they had either totally forgotten the plot when it came to section B questions for Macbeth and Jekyll and Hyde, or they frankly had only a sketchy knowledge of the plot to start with. So what they did was fall back on fairly classic. I mean, Lady Macbeth was always washing her hands, and Macbeth was always seeing daggers or ghosts, because that's really all they'd remembered. So what I did as a homework task was I gave them these fill the white space activities. Now all that is the 5 acts in 5 boxes, and I've just taken that straight off the internet. The idea being that this is what you do. There's the question, Lady Macbeth as a ruthless character, that's my focus for this homework or for this task, and they have to fill the white space with as many links as they can. So here you go. Now this is a lovely girl called Paris who did this for homework, and she's color coded it, I think just because she likes different colored pens. Actually, I don't think there's any great method in it, but what I'm trying to do is, if you see they've actually underlined specific parts of it, they aren't allowed to just, if I go back to the last slide, they aren't allowed to just pick the whole of Act 1 and say, that shows she's ruthless. They have to find a specific part of it so that when it comes to the exam, they are using a very specific reference from the text. So there has to be something underlined and linked. And I gave these out once a week with a different title in. And I did Jekyll and Hyde on the other side. I haven't used Jekyll and Hyde this week. If you like it, I'll show you the Jekyll and Hyde one next week. It's the same principle. But when it came to the Christmas, I've lost all track of time. When it came to Christmas, I asked them what the most successful things that they'd done were, and they all referenced this as being the most helpful thing they had ever done. Okay, so that they were, and doing a weekly essay, actually, unbelievably they came to enjoy their weekly essay. But this was the main thing, and you can put whatever, once you've done it, you can do it for whatever text you're studying, and you just put the title that you want them to focus on, the theme there or the character there. And even if they only, so for you it's no work at all because all you're doing is dropping something in there, and the students, even if they do exactly the same thing every week but with a different theme, at the very least they're reading the plot. Okay, so even if they only link 3 or 4 things up, then at least they've read it every single week and they've got an idea of the plot, so they've got more things to focus on. So I found that was amazingly successful. So I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that, but that was brilliant. So you're going to get that and that picture to show you it filled in. Okay, and I figured that could be quite useful. Okay, I realized I didn't pull my chat box down, so I didn't see what people were saying. Okay, white space activity looks very useful, thank you. Yeah, 100% use it, brilliant. I have to say the white space activity I have used on another project that I'll tell you about at the end, and it has been, it's changed my life. I need to get out more, I know, but it's changed my life. So hopefully people are liking that. This could also be used for poetry comparisons, I think. Give 2 poems, 1 theme, write all around how they link. Great for developing AO1 ideas. I absolutely agree. I think it's brilliant for AO1. we tend to be so fixated on the language part of it that I think AO1 gets horribly neglected, and AO1 is possibly the most approachable side part for some students. Okay. Um, People are going to try and do this for their students next week. Fantastic. Let's get some sharing going on if you're doing it for a different play. And I will next week share with you the Jekyll and Hyde one, which was a little bit more difficult because it's a bigger text. It's a bigger text to compress, but it still it worked. Okay. I'm still to do it for Inspector Calls. I need to find a way to do it for Inspector Calls, but I'm working on that at the moment. So hopefully I'll have something for you on that next week. Okay. And these were some projects then, if we end. Oh, Kerry has said, is it possible to set a Dropbox up so that we can share everything we make week to week? We have talked about that. The problem with setting an official one up, my worry was, and it was just that if we start sharing things that we have maybe got from elsewhere, we get into a dangerous area. But I will find a way to share, and I'll report back to you on next week on that one. So projects, I'm a great one for projects, and next week I'm going to show you a picture of the bestest one I ever had. But the first one is make a model of your favourite poem or your favourite author, or a scene from your 19th century text, or a setting from any of the lit GCSE texts. Now I'm a lover of paper mache. I'm just the it's the it's the result of a youth of Blue Peter. My parents would only let me watch BBC, so I never got to watch Magpie. Always thought that must have been terribly exciting. But BBC, obviously, I made a Tracy Island Thunderbirds with paper mache, so I like the model making. Write an alternative ending. So these are really more creative tasks. Again, I think maybe we need to allow some of those students who are missing the creative side, which has been maybe a little bit left behind and gets left behind in the rush for the exams. Maybe we can allow them to have a go now and flourish a bit more. I liked the arrange a dinner party. I did that in a lesson actually last year and it was great. Did have to explain what a dinner party was, so maybe I need to think of a house party or something. And write the invitations. What would they eat? That was again really interesting. Oh, my parents also only allowed BBC on, somebody said. Parents from a particular generation, yes, absolutely. And my parents were teachers as well, so yes. Somebody's asking, are you attempting to teach new literature texts yet? Or are you setting revision tasks? That was something I was going to deal with next week, is whether we're doing new texts. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then rewrite any of the poems into a short story, etc. Okay. So they were just projects that came to mind. So any other ideas here? Oh, this is this went down a storm. This is something I do all the time. If your character was a biscuit, what biscuit would there be and why? And I've put the biscuits in there, but I have had some fantastic responses on this one. And I've got another wider version of this for next week. I keep dropping hints about next week so that you'll come back. But this is fantastic. So, for instance, is there a biscuit for Scrooge, in fact? Would he be a biscuit? What kind of biscuit would he be at the beginning versus what kind of biscuit he would be at the end is an interesting one. Maybe he changes biscuit. I've also done it. Oh, a hobnob. Yeah, I like it. Yes, of course. Again, I've done it without the biscuit tin being there. But I've done it with the biscuit picture in the middle and they have to draw lines. Again, a white space activity. Fill the white space with ideas about who would be what biscuit and why. Which was great fun. And you can do that with any text. And again, I think it's something they could do as much. They can take as far as they want. You can expand it with, put a quote to prove that, or put a apart from the text. Oh, I'm being told something. Could I please advise the delegates that we will be replacing the chat box as we might cut someone typing? We are reaching chat box capacity, apparently. Oh. And Jennifer, the question you've asked about is no. The answer is no. There is no information from Pearson or anybody else about whether the whole content will be tested in 2021. As I said at the beginning, we know no more than you do. There is no more information about that at the moment. I'm afraid I can't help you on that one. So there's the Biscuit one, which was my favourite one there. And now we're going to go to the end of the literature. There you go. Any ideas to share, and we'll make them available to everybody who's signed up today. So if you've got a variation on that or a comment on that or any of the ones I've done today, you can share those in the breakout rooms, which I think are coming up now, I think. So yeah, we need to go to the breakout rooms now because we've reached the chat box capacity. Oh, and Jennifer says thank you for your response. Thank you, Jennifer. So we're starting the breakouts now. So I'll see you in the one breakout room and enjoy. We'll be in there about 5 minutes. Okay, so I'll see you after 5 minutes on the other side. I had to leave.
Main room now. Right.
Okay, thank you. I've got everybody on the screen now.
Hello. Great idea.
Can everybody see
breakout
everybody?
rooms, wasn't it? It was amazing. I'm going to go now and leave you.
Can everybody? Are we out?
They're here.
Where are the delegates now?
The delegates are with us, so don't say anything rude. Oh no! Oh well, at least
okay, good. Because I had to switch off. I crashed.
Nightmare.
I crashed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Whew. Total panic. Yeah. So I wasn't there, and I was having a great time in my breakout room.
I think.
Right.
Time, perhaps we'll leave
I'm back. Breakout rooms. Main issues were next year. What to do next year, obviously, and that's preying on my mind. How to create challenge for the high ability, and also how to deal with those who haven't got access to and won't access it. Whether you're going to be scrutinized with what you're doing was another issue, and the big one was how to handle remote learning, which, trust me, I've just had like the biggest sweaty 2 minutes I've had for ages when I crashed and burned there and just got that whirring icon thing. So I don't know whether it's because I'm on a Mac, but and somebody's put, think it would be helpful to have separate FE forum as discussed previously. Yes, and we are having networks for FE going forward, and we have thought about whether to do a week of lit and a week of lang. So that's something that we'll think about as a result of today. So thank you for that. I will obviously be talking to everybody that was in the Pearson staff that were in the breakout rooms at the end, and we'll collate the kind of issues that you had and hopefully feedback to you next week. And you've got the email address there to let us know if you've got any issues. I mean, we're all finding it challenging. I think it is, and obviously a lot of you, I haven't, but a lot of you have got small children at home as well, who must be in varying degrees of stress themselves. So again, it's difficult. Somebody's put next week, could the webinar be later as I'll be dealing with students all day? Yes, that's an interesting one. I think we need to think about whether it probably is around about 3 o'clock next week. So perhaps if you've got a feeling on that, you could tell me now in the open discussion. But we did do a survey and people said this time, but you know, I will go through the open discussion. I'd like resources for generic basic literacy skills. Yeah. So it will decide whether it's going to be, maybe you could email us or let us know now whether it's going to be 10 o'clock or 3 o'clock. I don't mind. I'm not going anywhere, unfortunately. So let's just, while you're telling me, we'll send an email to you with a survey. That would be useful. Thanks, Pam. Right, let me just make sure I can finish off then with what we're doing today. Any suggestions? Obviously, we've got those two booked in, the 23rd and the 30th, so any suggestions? I've got a few already. Let's look at what's coming up anyway. What more can we do to help? Obviously, please do email and I'll do my absolute best to help with you there. We've got these coming soon, a home learning scheme of work for Jekyll and Hyde. Now, that cropped up earlier in my breakout room, whether we do new texts or whether we stick with learning, revising. Now, I'm trying to get my year 10s through Jekyll and Hyde, but they are a top set. They are all expected to get 7 or 6 or above. And so I'm writing a new one there for Pearson's, and that should be available in a couple of weeks or maybe end of next week if I pull my finger out. And it'll have the whole text and questions. There are various versions already out there, but I wanted to do something that had less teachery questions and more engage with the text ideas. So that's coming. PowerPoint lessons for Jekyll and Hyde and Inspector Calls, Christmas Carol and Poetry with commentary on how to answer an exam question. So that's a kind of, you can sit back and let us do the work activity actually. We've got 2 done already and they should all be available end of next week. It's basically a half-hour commentary, but at various intervals they pause it and they do the task. So it probably could take a couple of hours to do overall. And the idea is they revise it and they go through a section A, they see a model question, a model paragraph, and then they can do their own. And then the same for section B. So that'll hopefully be very useful. There's a new scheme of work out there for Coram Boy, which I have here, the book here, which I enjoyed actually more than I expected. And there's also a scheme of work for Boys Don't Cry, which is another book that we've added to our repertoire. But that I can actually recommend despite what I thought. It wasn't my genre really, but I actually enjoyed it more than I thought. So this might be useful for you to read, have a look at and plan for next year maybe for when we do go back for On the Other Side. So that's coming up. Oh, somebody said, I really enjoyed Coram Boy, so we're very interested to see the new scheme of work. Well, Helen, it does exist. I know it's already been shared on our website. So again, have a look at that. I've tried to make the activities as fun and engaging as possible, but as I say, it's a 15-week scheme of work, the idea being that you read in one lesson and you do the activities in another lesson. So hopefully that'll help you out. And as I say, that would be something to put on the back burner for next year and save you some work really. So that's what we've got coming up. Let me share the rest of what we've got. Teacher Research Hub, if you're interested in getting involved, there's the email address. There are the 4 new texts that I've mentioned, and I'm pretty sure there's a scheme of work for all the Coram Boy, Refugee Boy, Boys Don't Cry, and the Empress, and there's some activities for the Poetry Anthology. Okay, which is good. Secondary resources, there's the sign up, gives you access to all those things. Have a look at those. There's obviously the York Notes. I need to tell you that you don't have to purchase endorsed or Pearson products, and in fact I have plugged somebody else's work earlier on today in this session. That our active learning suite is always worth a look, particularly if you're overwhelmed at the moment. Have a look at it. It's got a lesson for every single one of our poems in the anthology, so that again is a useful one to save you time. Okay, so that's good to look at. It's also got the Let's Think in English. Now we've got some free Let's Think in English lessons on our website anyway. Oh, somebody's asked, are there likely to be any new schemes of work for post-16 language? That's something that we're going to deal with in the FE network. So if you make sure you sign up for those, then we'll talk to you about what we can get sorted out for post-16, because that's a unique situation at the moment. The Diversity Conference is still there on Friday, 2nd of October, when we can get out again. And it was a real success last time, so hopefully you can join us there. And then I'll end, pretty much on time, with the lovely Claire again, who's available for any queries you've got. And then there is a feedback. We'd really like that because it's a poll and it'll help us going forward. So I think there's a feedback. There you go, a slide there. Please, can you put the website up again for resources? Yes, I will do. I'll go back to it. Oh, I can't seem to go back. Why can't I go back, John? Oh, perhaps I can now. Yeah, I can. Hold on. The one for sharing resources is... I'll get there. There. Okay. And I think, unless anybody's got an urgent query, I think that's it. And thanks ever so much for your support through my rather cack-handed attempt at technology there. I'm glad that when I lost it, it was only in the breakout room. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please send your feedback to that email address. Lovely to see you. Thanks. Everybody's saying thank you. Okay, we'll try and get to as many questions as we can. If we haven't answered your question today, please put it on the website on that address. But please do the feedback for us. Oh, everybody's saying I look forward to next week's session. Me too. Lovely. Thanks. That's really great feedback. That's lovely. Thank you. And people are looking forward to the slides. Brilliant. Bye. Thanks, John. You can sign people out now. Thank you.